thank you, and thanks for having me up again. It's a great pleasure. So I think what's been interesting in the last couple of years is we have seen a tremendously rapid transformation in the role of electronic healthcare and remote healthcare due to the pandemic. Ultimately, this led the way. I've been interested in telemedicine for more than a decade, and it was very slow to take off. And then in 2020, it suddenly became the way to do it. And so I call this the E-splosion, an explosion with electronic medicine. And this has affected every single aspect of patient care, from direct visits to therapeutic patient education. And I think that in many ways, this has been the silver lining to the cloud of the pandemic, because we can really see what has worked and what hasn't worked. And going forward, I think we have some questions to ask ourselves. Which part should we take with us now that we're thankfully back in person and able to do this? Which parts should we leave behind? I think for me, so far, I've been able to continue with 2 full days a week of teledermatology. So my Tuesdays and Thursdays, I get to stay at home and do it all remotely, and that has been really neat. About 80% of those cases are atopic dermatitis from all over the country. So that's been fascinating as well, and that may change, because during the time of the pandemic, we were able to see patients out of state. Typically in the US, each state has its own licensure, so we're not able to see patients out of state, but so far it's been open. And I think that will change back soon, but it's been interesting because I'm seeing a lot of patients from far away. The challenges, though, are certainly that we have to connect with a patient and a family through a screen, and that's much harder. You don't get to see the small interactions. You don't get to look someone directly in the face. You don't get to move the child to the side to look at an area where you can't see. So all of these are challenges, I think, that we all face when we do things electronically. And of course, we have the technology problems as well, from very crummy images with poor lighting, difficult to see what's going on, to people showing you spots that are too close and out of focus. So these are all the kinds of challenges that we're dealing with electronics. But there are several good parts too, things that I think make it really special. One of my favorite things is that because we can talk for a while, but then I can say, we're going to send everything to you electronically after the visit. And patients like that, so it actually can help cut down some of the questions. I can say, we'll go through a little bit now, but stay tuned. As soon as we finish, I'm going to send you a packet with all of that information written out. And patients love that. And then I say, you can respond to me later. You can ask more questions later by email. And it really does kind of focus them a little bit, which is harder to do in real life because sometimes you can't escape the visit. They just want to keep talking, and it's very difficult. I also like that I can send electronic links. So I very strongly believe that we should be prescriptive with our products. So I like to specifically pick out products and dosages, and I want them to know exactly what I want them to use beyond prescriptions, of course. So I love that I can send them a link to the product, because one of the worst things is you say, okay, use this gentle cleanser. And then they come back and say, oh, I got this cleanser. Isn't this the same? And you're like, no, this has fragrance and exfoliating beads. This is totally not what I wanted you to get, right? Or sometimes they say, oh, I tried to find the one that you said, but I couldn't find it. So these are problems that happen every day, but when I can send a link, I say, no, you click on the link and you'll get exactly the product, plus they can see the price. So for price-conscious patients, which it can be very expensive to recommend products, they can see exactly what I'm talking about, and I'm very focused on that for them, because I understand that's not going to come from insurance. They're going to have to pay for many of these things out of pocket. I also like that I can send references for them to read, so I'll often put different resources, and I'll say, I'd love for you, this is your homework. I want you to do this and read these things, and then I'm going to quiz you on it. I'm going to ask you questions about what you read. And that can be very helpful, because I think there are, again, so many questions. We've touched upon them here in terms of food allergy. What is the role of foods and food allergy? What is the role of steroid safety? How do we prevent overuse? What are the parameters? By giving them some reading material that I've selected, not just going on Google or going on Facebook. I want to show you the things that I want. Then I feel like they're up to speed. And again, because I say I'm going to ask them questions, I think they really do read it more. And then finally, one of the most important tools that I've really fallen in love with in the past couple of years is the ADCT. And I think this is one of those take-home things that has changed my practice. Atopic Dermatitis Control Tool. It was developed with the HOME group, the Harmonizing Outcome Measures in Eczema. It is absolutely amazing. I was not part of the development of this tool, but I'm truly fallen in love with it. It is 6 questions. It takes about 1 minute. And I often now do it live with the patient, even with Tella. I say, well, let's do our questions together. And I just read them, and we go through them together. And I will tell you that I've had a number of just incredible experiences where the typical case is an adult patient who looks pretty bad. But when I say, how are you doing? They say, oh, I think I'm okay. I'm doing okay. I'm fine. And I say, are you? Let me ask you these 6 questions. And we start going through them. Over the last week, how would you say your eczema has been in terms of symptoms? And we start going through. And then at the end, we give the number. And it goes from 0 to 24. And I had one of these patients, she came out with a 20, totally out of control. And she just started crying. And she said, you're right, I'm not good. I'm actually pretty bad. So this tool, 6 questions, 1 minute, can change life because you really get a sense, not only a point in time, right? Because this is another problem. If you use a SCORAD or an EASY, generally speaking, you're looking at that one moment in time. But with this, we're really stretching out to the past week. It's closer, I think, to the SCORAD, where we at least include some sleep concepts. But very, very easy to do. And then I track them with each visit. So I think that's been very powerful. And then this is an actual one. I deleted, blotted out some of the specific product recommendations just to keep it very clear here. But this is what the email looks like when I send post-visit. So, it was great to see you. Here's our plan. And I have that plan with the numbers. So when you're flaring up in the morning, in the day, in the evening, we kind of have those things. Then I'll have that prescriptive piece. We're going to do this for a few days, up to 1 week. And then when you're better, right below, we have part 2. So here we have usually our non-steroidal that I tell them, this is how we're minimizing the exposure to steroids. This is a non-steroidal piece. And then we can have that all there. Below that piece, we then have the specific products. So here's the cleanser you can get. Here's the moisturizer. Here's the vitamin D and probiotic supplements I like. And then you can see even below, we have some of the articles that I want them to read. Some of the ones, I usually put ones that I've written so they know what I'm talking about. And then I also put a link to the Eczema Wise app that we heard about yesterday. Really wonderful, because I like them to track themselves in addition to doing that ADCT. So all of these pieces of the puzzle come together, and it's so nice because it's written for them in the chart, and then that is copied in their record. So I know exactly what they know. If they call the next day and say, wait, what am I supposed to do again? Any of my staff can just say, oh, let's go through your email again. We have everything right here. Here's your plan. Which product was I supposed to use? It's right there. Everything in one place. And that has been very powerful. And if something doesn't work for a patient, then I can change it. So their updated one, well, okay, we tried this and that didn't work, so we're going to switch the cleanser. We're going to switch to a heavier moisturizer. And one of the things that helps me do that is that Eczema Wise app. So we talked a little bit about that yesterday. And in terms of my therapeutic patient education, I've been running this integrative eczema center for now more than 10 years. And it's been really interesting. We started out doing it live, and we used to do it in our waiting area. Sometimes we'd have just a couple of people. Sometimes there'd be so many we didn't know what to do with everybody. It was very hard to plan because we have a different speaker each time. And some speakers, everyone wanted to come. One time we had Dr. Richard Aaron, who is, I think he's pretty amazing, South African dermatologist who invented this Aaron regime approach. And we had over 150 people show up from all over the country. And so we actually had to rent an auditorium when he came because I couldn't fit all these people in my office. We just do it in the waiting area. So we had to rent an auditorium for him, and that was amazing. But now we've switched in the pandemic to doing it virtually. And I have to say, I think we're going to stay virtual. It's better for everybody. Families with little kids can just tune in on Zoom. They don't have to worry about packing everybody up and coming in. We can actually spend much more time talking and doing the support group part, because the way that we do it is we have an educational piece at first, and then we split and we go into the support group. So that has been really, to me, that's probably the most important part of it. The support part is where people really get to talk and ask questions, and I think a lot of the best education comes when people ask those specific questions and we get to answer it as a group. And what's really neat is this is expanded from Chicago to the surrounding states to the US, and now we have people from all over the place tuning in. We've had people from as far away as Australia and New Zealand, and they're coming into the meetings, which is great. And that's the beauty of a virtual online meeting. Anyone can come in. It's totally free. It's been really exciting. And then I can point them towards different resources. This is our Eczema Center homepage. It's very simple. It's very basic, but we have some of the information. I put some of the videos that I do. I try to update it with anything that I'm writing and working on. A lot of my patients are interested in, what's new? What are you thinking about lately? I love the discussion of black tea because that's something that I learned about. There was a beautiful paper recently, I think it came from Lübeck, Germany, that they talked about it for face eczema, and I have the whole piece on it on the website because my patients also love it. I heard, you saw the reaction was really positive because a lot of my patients are looking for home remedies like that, things that may be helpful. So we can put things here, we can talk about them. In fact, you can even see it on there. Black tea compress is one of the latest resources. So I have a whole handout just about how to do it, how I recommend it, and the information about it. That's very, very fortuitous. And then we put upcoming meetings, and you can see here we even have the Eczema Expo, the National Eczema Center Expo coming up as well. So I really like this as a clearinghouse for information so patients can find out what's new, what's happening. I try to write about all the new medicines coming out to help deal with some of the problems. When COVID came out, there were so many questions. We had so many calls, people saying, what do I do with dupilumab and COVID? Am I at higher risk for COVID because of my atopic dermatitis? Is this an immunodeficiency? How do I think about it? So I wrote a whole piece. And then when patients would call, I'd say, I'm going to talk to you, but will you just read this first? Just a page, not a huge amount, but it had enough information with references that I can direct them towards. So this is, to me, part of it. Of course, that base education is critical. We need to get the basics, but there's continuing education for all of us, but also for our patients. There's new innovations, there's new ideas, and I really want to have this continued dialogue with them. And for the right group of patients, not everybody's interested in all this, but for those who are, it's been incredibly rich and incredibly rewarding because they keep learning and growing, and then they evangelize. They tell other families, they tell other patients, and those support groups, a lot of times, I sit quietly and listen. They're teaching each other. They're talking about what they know. They're sharing those experiences, and at the end of that, the therapeutic alliance, that relationship is really unshakable. It's stronger, it's better, and I truly believe, I don't have data, I wish I did, but I truly believe the outcomes are better too, because these people are truly invested in their care and in understanding. So thank you so much for your attention. I will end with some pictures of my pizzas.